Blowing in from the Windy City, it's time for JW Fusion with your hosts, James and Wendy B.
Welcome to this week's broadcast of JW Fusion. I am your co-host, J.H. Carpenter Barnes, and I'm here with the awesome and amazing
Wendy B.
The one and only. Yeah. We've got an amazing show on this week, babe.
Wow.
We got a smoking show.
We have a guest.
Not smoking show, but a smoking show.
We do.
We've got, who we got, babe? Who's our guest?
We have Mr. Earl Sewell. This man is man.
This man is the man.
He has thinking that just goes beyond what we usually think, and he acts on it.
Yes, indeed.
He's an author.
He used to have a television show. He's a thinker. He's a doer. He's a dream come truer.
That's what he is, seriously. And we're going to tap into that because so many of us
we want to
think
draw.
We can't. And
we want to learn. We want to draw from him.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming and sharing your insight, your wisdom, your talent.
Mm-hmm.
We're excited.
Yeah,
we're excited.
He has a lot of.
So let's open it up. Let's get into it.
He's a busy man.
He's a very busy man, and he lets no grass grow under his feet. But we'll talk about
that's the same thing my agent says.
That's true, though. I love that. So we hope that people will hear what you're saying and stretch.
Yeah.
Just a little more.
Stretch beyond what's comfortable.
Yeah. That's how you grow.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So tell us about Earl. Tell us about Mr. Sewell. Tell us about the writer, the oh my gosh,
the athlete,
the podcaster, the voiceover specialist.
Yeah.
Voice actor.
Yeah.
I was about to say, what do you call it? I was trying to think of what actor. You're a voiceover actor.
Voice acting.
It's called voice acting.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's actually.
Let's hear what.
Yeah, tell us about
Who are you?
Okay, so I'm Katie and Earl's son.
There we go.
Yeah,
gotta shout out them parents.
Have to shout out the parents.
Yeah.
So I am from Chicago, a native of the west side of Chicago. I grew up over there. Eventually, my family in the 1970s, we moved out to a wonderful suburb called Palatine, Illinois. So,
oh wow,
yeah, buddy. So
wow.
There weren't as many people who were as beautiful and as chocolate as me.
I was about to say,
during
y'all
that
was
time.
it.
Yeah. So that offered me a very unique experience, which I wouldn't trade because it helped me to become who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I learned an awful lot. When I was out there, it was really taking me out of a situation that was filled with scarcity, lack, a lot of downtroddenness, and I was transplanted into an area that was more prosperous, more abundant, and that had more opportunities for me to grow, to develop, and become. Whereas if I would have remained where I was, there would have been other influences that could have, turned my life in another direction.
Yes,
so
definitely.
I'm grateful for my parents for taking that psychological leap.
Yeah.
Because they were from Mississippi. They were part of the Great Migration that moved north and settled onto that side of Chicago, and to take that psychological leap and leave the comfort zone of what they knew and what they were familiar with to go into the unknown.
That's a 180.
That takes a lot of courage.
It does.
First
and
of all,
he went from a place where there was a lot of people don't have hope.
Yeah, well,
they
not
don't
only that, it's
to
one
a place
thing,
totally different.
I mean, because my parents did the same thing. My parents were from Laurel, Mississippi, and there were more opportunities, more jobs in the north. So that's where everybody came: Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, and I think Pittsburgh. But mostly Chicago and Detroit. My family went to, and so it takes courage to move. Okay, you come here, you're comfortable, you're around people who look like you. That's a comfort zone. You leave the South because it's not so comfortable down there. It's there are forces and entities that make it clear you're not welcomed here. But you go north, you find better opportunities. But then to step again into an unknown realm and create, because when you're creating, when you're really creating, there's always a blank canvas. If you're not dealing with a blank canvas, you're renovating, you're updating, you're revising. But if it's a blank canvas, like you said, you stepping out into the darkness, that's true creativity right there. And that's what they did. That takes a lot of courage.
Yeah. And from a historical perspective, to help viewers and listeners understand this, historically, people of color who are African American, generally, whenever they move somewhere, they want to know one of the first things they want to know is, are there any people of color like me in the community?
Yeah.
And that is out of a sense, that comes from the Jim Crow South era, whereas you could not go into certain areas, certain communities, and certain neighborhoods. So that carried over from that era and still exists to some degree today, where people are concerned about who's in the community and will there be people who, like me, who share a commonality of experience. So again, to make that leap against forces or family members who you did not exactly see the vision, did not see the dream, and were stuck in what is instead of thinking about what could be.
Sure.
And so again, that takes a lot of courage. So I give hats off to my parents for taking such a huge leap.
I mean, I know all we have to do is look at how many people we know personally that we see on a daily basis that complain about where they are. They complain about what they do for a living. They complain about not having an opportunity, being unappreciated on their job, being underpaid on their job, being disrespected on their job, but yet they won't leave that job. They won't step out.
Because there's comfort there.
It's comfortable.
Even if they're not happy.
You're frustrated and you feel discontented, but you're not afraid because you know what to expect. You know this boss is what they're going to say on Monday. You know what they're going to do. So there's no surprises. But when you step out and you want to take that same skill, for example, if you're working at a KFC, what are you doing? You cooking chicken, right? So what if you have a gift, a knack, you have a recipe for cooking chicken, and you go out and cook chicken on your own? Well, you may do very well because people have done very well. You're still cooking chicken, but you're just doing it for yourself. But that fear factor, that there's a transformation that has to take place mentally for you to be able to even make that first step. And once you make that first step, I believe with the measure of faith we've all been given and the gift that we've all been given, when we step into our gift and you combine it with that faith, you make one step, then you make another step, and then you make another step. And before you know it, you're walking, and then you're striding. And then after a while, you're strolling. And then after a while, you're strutting. You know?
Yeah.
And then when you really take off, you start running, like Earl does.
Earl runs a lot.
Earl runs a lot.
He runs a lot. I got my 3 miles, Earl. That's what I do.
Okay.
I stop as soon as the time I'm through. I'm not a runner. I'm someone who likes to run.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Earl, tell us about your history as a writer, because you've been quite prolific. I believe you've written 25 novels.
25 novels.
Yeah.
So my writing is a byproduct of my reading, and so I have to go back and really express how my love of reading started with my mom at home.
Okay.
So when I was young, me and my mom, we would read together.
Okay.
I can still remember, going and sitting with her on the side of the bed. And at the time, they had these like Time Life books where you can order these books off.
Yeah.
You remember you have a Time Life book, and they had the gold little trim. And so she ordered like The Little Women, Three Musketeers, Moby Dick. And so we would sit and we would take turns reading to each other. We would
That is awesome.
We would read the book. So that instilled a love of reading and storytelling for me.
Now, how old were you when you started that?
I was like 11, 12.
Okay.
That's when, it was just something we did.
Man,
to
that's
share.
awesome.
Yeah, that's what Matthew and I do. We would read together all the time.
See,
we would go to the bookstore, the library.
I started reading very early. I started reading at like kindergarten, first grade, I guess. I had my mother worked for a doctor, Dr. Sanaiko, and their sons who are doctors now they had a huge box of books, and they gave it to me. And I would just sit and read and read and read. So when I started school, I hit first grade, I was so advanced in my reading, they wanted to put me in third grade. But because I had pneumonia as a baby, I always had a cold. And I missed half the school year being sick. So they couldn't they couldn't give me a double, so they just promoted me to the next grade. But that reading thing it reshapes your brain.
It never leaves you. It never leaves you.
Yeah. And so you're so right. It reshapes your brain, and it helps you with how you think and how you process information. And it's really a skill that you should never ever grow tired of. You shouldn't. I'm never caught without a book. I'm always growing. I'm always learning. And so one of the things that I will say to listeners and viewers, when it comes to reading, read the world. Do not just sit and read American authors or just read in a particular genre.
Right.
Read the world, because then you get a much broader perspective of the human experience and humanity. So when you read a book from an author from the continent of Africa, you'll get a different perspective on humanity. You won't get an Americanized view of it. When you read an author from the Netherlands, you will get a different perspective. And then that's where you find the commonality of experiences as humans. And, those stories, those books, and those things, they stay with you. And not only, don't only stick with fiction, do nonfiction as well. Because when you have these writers who have put their work out there for someone to find, for someone to enjoy, for someone to learn from. And it's no accident. I always say this: when I find a book that I love to read or that I picked up, it's no accident that I found that book, because that book was meant for me to find.
That's powerful, man.
That is powerful.
It was meant for me to find. And so I have come across some really amazing books from authors from around the globe that have made me say, man, I need to go back to the drawing board and work on my writing some more, because some people are word lyricists, and they can put together sentences and they can put together thoughts and ideas that will tickle your brain in a way that you didn't even think was possible. And so I just love that. So what ended up happening is my mom and I, we started off reading together. I was a reader in high school, but I was also a track and field athlete in high school. But during that time where you're trying to fit in socially, guys walking around with books, reading a books just wasn't
cool.
That wasn't cool. So I was a closet reader. When I got
so funny.
When I got out, I ended up working at a library, because that was meant for me, because I figured my steps were being ordered. It says, okay, we're going to put you in this environment. And when I started working at the library, I was in an environment where that's what people did. It was not shunned upon to read. So I would go up and down the libraries.
You found your people. You found your people.
I would walk you were at home.
I would sit there and I would read, and I just read. And so, it's funny, my father, then I decided I said I could write a story like that. And so here I was, 19, 20 years old, and I'm sitting at home on a Friday or Saturday night in my room with the computer, which was like a Tandy. It was like a black screen.
I was about to say, what the?
With orange light. And I'm sitting there writing, and my father would come in and say, "What the hell are you doing in here?" And I said, "I'm writing." He goes, so for some reason that didn't compute, because he figured at that age I was supposed to be on the street raising hell. And I'm sitting in there, writing, and he thought I was writing a manifesto.
I love that, though.
But it was just this thing that started to blossom in me, that I had to tell a story. I could not do it. It called me. It pulled at me. It constantly begged me to, write it. And so that was one of the times that I realized that this is something unique. And so you asked a bit more. I went to Columbia College, Chicago, downtown performing arts school.
That's an amazing school. We just went there for Matthew.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how freaking big this school is.
Yes.
It's huge.
Yes, it is.
But I love the fact that they immerse the student in right away into whatever field they're trying to be in. You get immersed immediately.
So what was your maja?
I had a double major. I had a broadcasting major and a fiction writing major.
Oh wow. Awesome.
Yeah. So it's funny because I I was successful at writing, but I did not use the broadcasting. But now that the technology has caught up, now I can marry the two.
Yes, yes.
And it is amazing to be able to marry the two.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It is. It is. And your platform that I've seen on social media is what I like about Earl is he's very inclusive. He's not out because he could very easily charge people if he interviewed them on his show, but he's like we are about promoting people, and he likes to promote writers and I really love that when I see an individual or a group that is not about trying to make a buck, but about trying to make a difference, because the more writers that you have in our community that are good at what they do, and they get better by being inspired by other writers. When somebody listens to you talk, or the things that are possible, that are available, most people don't know that. You know, unless they've been out there, had their head bumped, and with you've been out there, you've been stomping and making your way. So you've been like a pioneer, so to speak, in the area of marrying broadcasting with literacy or with writing.
Yes. Yeah. And and also to talk a little bit about that, is talk to people about dreams. There are so many people who have approached me who said they want to write a book, or they believe they have a book in them.
You get that all day, every day, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I hear it.
Yeah. And so what I would like to say to that is, my journey, for me to become a writer is an amazing event. Okay. Considering that when I was younger, I used to be a struggling reader and a reluctant reader at that. Okay. So that's one thing. So I got over that with being a reluctant reader or a struggling reader and developed a love for it. But when I sat down to write a book, I remember this so clearly. It just came to me, it just came out of me, and I just sat down and I just started writing. I didn't worry about what I had to do. I didn't worry about, what needs to get. It was just like, this is what I'm doing.
Yes.
Period.
Yes.
And so from that, I wrote out my first book. I wrote it all out on legal pad. I hand wrote it out.
Really? You get the legal pad? I cannot write that way.
Yeah. I just wrote it out on a legal pad. And so it became this obsession. It was like I was pregnant and I was giving birth to this.
That's exactly what it is, though.
I was giving birth to this book. When I got done, I typed it up and I tried to get it published. I got rejected over 40 times for my first book.
Wow. Okay, you got rejected 40 times and you've written 25. So how did you get past everyone saying no?
Everyone saying no?
How do you keep going? How do you find the courage to just ask one more person?
I stopped asking. When I stopped asking, and when I first started, I self-published.
Okay.
After all of those rejection letters, I said, you know what? Something in me said, believe.
Love it.
I had to believe.
Yeah.
And and that's all I had to go on, was just believe. So I went and learned the business. I went and learned the publishing business.
What does that mean? I went and learned. What did you do?
I went to the library and I learned.
Went back home.
So this was before internet.
This was before internet.
Okay.
I went back to the library
Yeah.
and I found books on publishing and how to do it, and books on printing, how to do it. I sat down, I educated myself because mama didn't raise no fool.
Okay.
Mama.
So I went and I educated myself, and then with the new knowledge that I got, I executed. It was a simple formula. Go learn, then go do.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
And so when I went and I learned, and then I went and I went to do, and I got the books. I got the books printed. I got them published. I went and sold them. I did everything I could. I built a following, an email list, and then lo and behold, about 2 years later, the publishers came to me.
Okay.
Oh, now you want to know who I am. Now you want to talk to me.
Now you want to talk to me. So when the publishers came to me, I said, "Oh, really?"
But now you have a choice. You're in charge.
Yeah. Now
as opposed to you hoping they say yes. And
so it's really an interesting thing, because self-publishing, when I started, was shunned upon. It
was.
It was.
It was something like where they thought that you weren't really quote unquote.
Beneath.
You're not
you weren't
a real
up to
writer.
snuff. You weren't up to a standard.
Yeah.
And so then when I got to the established publishing houses, the New York Simon and Schuster, Kensington, then all of a sudden, now you have arrived. Yeah,
now you're an author for real.
Yeah, now you're but no, I've been an author for a long time, but now
you just didn't know about it.
Yeah, now someone else has put their stamp on you and said, yes, we approve you.
Yeah.
And so, that has its good feelings for a moment, but I was already approved long before I needed theirs. So, got the first deal, and then 25 books later, the world changed.
Okay.
And so it doesn't mean so the world changed. The contracts weren't coming in as frequently, and then they stopped. But that didn't stop me from telling stories.
Sure.
That didn't stop me from being a writer. What that did for me was saying, reinvent.
It caused you
Let
to
me
learn
tell you
some
what.
more.
That was the word that came to mind, that you reinvented yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And and it's the same thing in other careers. You have to reinvent yourself.
The world is always going to change.
Yeah, but see, some people don't do well with change.
Well, yeah.
They don't. They
don't.
They don't do well with
But
change.
they're constantly frustrated, mad, angry.
They're frustrated, and they don't, because change requires, again, making that step into the darkness to something you don't know, you haven't done before. Mm-hmm. And when you don't have someone to look to, you don't have a beacon or an example to follow. All right, like in Earl's case, you probably the only guy you knew that was
at 19 in front of the computer.
I mean, like when you started writing, you did that because that was your gift.
That was a gift.
Your gift called you.
Yes.
Just like the scriptures say that the gifts and the calling of God is without repentance. What that means is the gifts that we have with them, we come here with them. We come here with the gift, and we come here with a measure of faith, because unto every man is given a measure of faith. Mm-hmm. Because without that faith, you can't exercise your gift. Mm-hmm. You won't believe in it. Yeah. So what happens is there's a calling that goes along with that gift that calls you to execute that gift. It's a calling. It's a requirement. You are obligated. You owe us your gift.
Yeah.
You owe us that. And people who are gifted, they owe us. Yeah. There's an obligation. There's a debt you have to pay with your gift. Yeah. And that's what that call is.
Yeah. And it's wonderful that you say that, because during my time with publishing houses, I got to write in different genres. And one of the things that I'm really proud of is I got to write young adult fiction. Okay. For children of color, contemporary African American fiction for children of color. Wow. That did not exist, and so it surprised the publishers at how popular it was. It was a Keisha's drama series. There's 8 books in that series where I got to tap into my inner 8-year-old girl. I mean, my inner 16-year-old girl. Okay. But
ooh, that's heavy. 16-year-old girl.
16-year-old girl, and I pulled it off. Wow. I was, when the imprint was successful, that particular series was one of their most successful.
What called you to write that series? Because as a black man,
sure,
we would assume wrongly that you tap into a teenage boy, because that's what you know. What made you tap into a teenage girl and write 8 books?
Our children.
Exploring.
Our children.
Okay.
So
did you have a daughter?
Yeah, I have a daughter, and she was in junior high when I started that series.
Okay.
And so the other thing is, I remember myself when I was a young guy in high school, going to the library and asking the librarian to help me find a book that reflected who I was. And she could not find it.
She couldn't do it.
And so the book that she did find was, no disrespect to Margaret Walker, but it was Margaret Walker's Jubilee, which was about slavery in 1780, whatever. Right. And I said, it's 19.
Nothing current. Right.
No, I don't want to read about slavery. That is, and so, but again, that was what was available. And then flash forward 20-something years later, there was still that void. Yeah. And so then I decided to fill it. Okay. So when the opportunity came, I wanted to write from a young man's perspective. However, publishers and their data and their limited thinking said, well, young girls are the ones who will read the books most, because young boys at this age aren't necessarily trained to read books at 14, 15, 16. Well, I said, well, that's your data, because I was that 14, 15-year-old boy who read. But you know what? I took the opportunity because it was a chance to do that. But that was one of my proudest things, because I still get emails from people who are still discovering that book. And that book, the first book came out 11 years ago.
Wow.
11 years ago. And people still love it.
So Keisha had a lot to say because that's a short amount of time to have 8 books. She just kept like, oh, I got to write about something different. I need something else.
Yeah. And so, but and so for me to even pull it off, and you talk about, walking in faith and having faith, for someone to come and says, okay, we want you to write, a girl, a story that centers around a 16-year-old girl, can you do it? And you know what? I did not hesitate. I said, yeah, as a writer, you have to be able to write both male and female perspectives.
You do.
That's awesome.
You do, because in the follow-up to Between the Ticks of the Clock, it's the book centers around Gabriella, who is the spouse of the protagonist in the first book.
Mm-hmm.
His wife is even more powerful than he is. And I'm writing from that female perspective, and I didn't really give it any thought until when you said that, I guess because she developed in the first book, I knew who she was and understood her, but she's growing and expanding. And when you're writing fiction, the characters take on a life of their own and they develop and literally grow.
Yeah.
And so when you said that, I said, wow, I didn't stop to think about writing. I think maybe if I had, I might have backed off if I thought about it and been logical instead of allowing the creativity to flow. You know what I mean?
Yeah. As human beings, we're all on a spectrum of masculine energy and feminine energy.
Yes.
And we can move up and down that
We have
scale.
both. Yes.
We have both. And so, knowing that, because of my reading and my knowledge, I knew I could tap into a feminine sort of energy way because it's within me. It was given to me just as much as I can tap into a more masculine one.
Sure.
And so being able to put myself in that state was a beautiful thing, but it was exhausting. But it was a good exhausting because I knew I was giving. There was something that was coming from deep within that I was giving, and it showed.
Yeah.
Where the young adult readers were like, "Oh my God, I know this character. I want to be this character." I had one young man. This is telling you how the age of the book. When MySpace was out, I put the picture of the book cover up on MySpace, and I put. And I put a little link in there to go back to the book. And some young man thought it was this young girl who was writing, because the cover had a girl on it. Yeah. Thought that this girl was writing out her diary and putting her diary out on a blog. And so the young man sends an email talking about, "Here's my number. Would you like to date me?" And I was like, oh my God. But anyway, so when you talk about people who have goals and dreams and passions and those sorts of things, but don't act on them, you're right. You owe that to the world to give birth to that sort of thing.
You do.
And I think that if I cannot stop giving birth because I'm blooming, I'm going to bloom until I die. Because, some people bloom, young, and we celebrate people who bloom young and figure out what they want. But most of societies are considered what they call late bloomers.
Yeah.
We have to have a little history. We have to have a few miles on our legs. And then we bloom at different spots. And we bloom multiple times in our lives.
Yes, we do.
You can be 80 years old and still blooming.
Yes.
With something. And so I look at this as you talk about reinventing. I say, I'm just, it's a new season for me to bloom in a different way and look at the color of the flower that comes up.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
That's beautiful.
I want to speak to, because I know what I would be saying, because we're from the inner city.
Okay.
And so speak to that person who didn't get to come away from the West Side, that person who is still in that box. Listen, I have bills. Yes, I have this gift for this. I need to work. And they're not working in their gifting, but I have bills. I have children. I have, a family to feed. I have, you know what I'm saying? I don't have time to tap into that gift because we're selling them that they're obligated to the world to give their gift. Talk to that person who feels they don't have the luxury of doing that because they have obligations.
Sure. Well, I will say this.
Well, wait a minute. Let me tell you what. Let's do this.
Oh, commercial. Shoot.
Open that thought up because we got about 10 seconds before this next commercial comes in. So just open that up and we'll come back to it after the commercial break.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Let me tell you, when you walk through life, you only get one shot at it. And if you worry about your bills the entire way, you're going to get to the end of your life and you say, what if?
What if?
Okay.
That's powerful.
That's a great opening.
That's powerful.
Thank you for that.
I mean, because there was a minister that said that the cemetery is the wealthiest piece of real estate,
full of gifts.
because there's so many gifts and
That
dreams
died.
and ideas and innovations that were never ever expounded upon or released.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, we're going to be back after this message with our special guest.
This book is the story of Jameson Harold Donovan, who lives in the city of Sussex Falls. Feeling trapped in his dysfunctional marriage to his wife and a stranger to his own children, thoughts of suicide dominate his waking hours. Jameson discovers he was selected before birth by the Almighty to receive quasi-angelic abilities. Between the ticks of the clock. You're listening to JW Fusion with your hosts, James and Wendy B.
And we're back with the remarkable and gifted. So continue on, sir.
So you can live your entire life wondering what if. So I was on that track too, whereas I had bills, I had things that were taking my attention. And so I had a conversation with myself, and I said, before you die, what is this one thing that you know you need to do?
That's a good question.
So I
Wow.
asked myself that question, and I said, you want to at least write one book and get it published. And that was all I had to say to myself. Everything else sort of just moved out of the way, because then I didn't let my consciousness get scattered all over the place. I took my consciousness and I focused it on what I needed it to do.
Wow. That's powerful.
Okay? You have the ability, that's one of our superpowers, that we are able to take our consciousness and we can create, we can invent, we can do so much with the power of our mind, but there's so many other forces and people and things that want the attention of our mind, and we are so quick to follow it down this hole, down that hole, down this, down that.
Yeah.
And you know that you're putting your power into other people's hands,
Yeah.
who are going to make money off of you, or get you wherever they need you to be.
Yeah.
But you have the power with your own mind to focus that. So anybody who says, "Oh, I have bills," and I'll say, "Yeah, so do I."
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what? You got bills. Okay, my bills are so big I call them William.
Me
Okay.
too. Me too.
Okay,
You know
so-
what? That's powerful
I
what
love
you're
that.
saying right there, because just last week we were filming the new show, and I was teaching on the influence of the environment, how your environment is your enemy, and how where you are is your enemy. An example I gave is when you're in bed. Imagine it's a February morning, there's an ice storm out, you're in a nice toasty warm bed. That bed served its purpose. When you laid down at 10:30, 11 o'clock the previous night, that's where you needed to go. But now the alarm clock's gone off. It's 5:30. You hear the ice hitting the windshield. You peep out the window, hitting the window, the bedroom window. You look out, you see the snow, you see the ice. That bed is saying,
You see
don't
every
leave
reason
me.
that you don't
Stay
wanna
here
get
with
up.
me.
Yeah.
It's so warm and toasty. The heat didn't kick on. So when you step out of the bed, it's chilly. You want to get back where you were because it's comfortable.
Yeah.
But that is not where you need to be. You cannot get where you need to be by staying where you are.
Yeah. Here's a tip for you, and this speaks to what you're doing. Your brain has 5 seconds roughly before it decides to talk you out of something.
Yeah,
I was just telling you that.
Yeah.
5 seconds.
It's roughly
Mel-
about 5
Yeah,
Mel
seconds.
it is.
Robbins
Yeah,
It
yeah.
is.
Somebody.
5 seconds. So when you need to make yourself do something, count down backwards. 5, 4, 3,
What's
2,
her
1.
name? Because she
Mel
has
Robbins.
a whole Robbins. Yeah.
Yeah.
Launch.
I was just telling you that.
Yeah.
Yeah, launch. No matter what. I
Just
mean,
go.
just go.
Yeah.
Because you never feel bad about doing what you intended to do.
Yeah.
You feel bad when you
Yeah.
don't do it.
Yeah. Elaborate on that, on the psychology of that, because that's powerful and it's so very true. Elaborate on it, because I know you have to do that with the things that you're doing.
Yeah. So as a human being, as a spiritual being having a human experience, I know that it is my job to make sure that I do what I intend to do, set an intention, set a goal, and go do it.
Sure.
By design, there are going to be things that try to prevent you from doing it. That's just the human struggle. That's just whatever. And so when you make an intention to do something, you may say, okay, tomorrow I'm going to start that new diet, or tomorrow I'm going to start that new exercise plan. I say, no, start it right now.
Can you, boy, say it again. I'm going to start July 1st. I'm going to start.
Because if you put it off, because then it's going to be the next day, the next day, the next day.
Yeah.
Do it now.
Yeah.
Because, and then what I do is whenever I call him Negative Ned, that little voice in my head, Negative Ned.
You gave him a name.
I gave him a name because I have to name him. Because, because Negative Ned will come up and he will start talking.
Yeah.
So, oh God, this is going to get, this thought here. All of the thoughts that you're going through your head, you're not aware of them all.
Right.
No, you're not.
Okay. Imagine this. Imagine if every thought that you ever had in your head manifested itself into a person and sat on the couch next
It'd
to
be
you.
crowded. You run out of space.
Okay. Wait. So every thought in your head manifested itself into your roommate, and you were sitting and wanting to watch a movie with your roommate. You just want to watch the movie, and here goes your roommate. Did you turn off the lights? You know, the bill was high last month. What about that problem in the basement? Did you see about that? You should really be thinking about your money because your bank account's low. And it starts telling you all of this other stuff. And it's like, that has nothing to do with what you want to do, which is watch TV or watch this movie. But it's going through and it's telling you a whole laundry list of other stuff. And the next thing you know, it's like, yeah, maybe I do need to go and check this. And so, but when you have that roommate, you have to know you have to know that roommate very well.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to shut it out and turn it off, because if not, you will take financial advice from that roommate.
Yeah.
You will mess up.
You will take relationship advice from that roommate.
Yeah.
So you have to really be aware. You have to really be aware. So a lot of success that people have has to come down with personal development and growth. You have to grow. If you don't grow, you will become stuck. You will become small, and you will continue with your small thinking.
Yeah.
And so, but if you are designed to grow from the moment the seed hit the egg, you started growing.
Yeah.
And you come out of the womb, you're growing. Nobody ever says, "Okay, I finished school, stop growing."
Right. Right.
You have to keep growing, which is interesting, because the book my latest project, Lenny Gray, is a work of historical fiction.
Okay.
And this work of historical fiction,
We're going to hold it up for the people to see.
This work of historical fiction sort of speaks to a different era when people just did not have access to a library due to Jim Crow segregation.
Sure.
There was a reason why you weren't given, or ancestors or grandparents or stuff weren't given access to books and knowledge and information. It was designed to keep you small.
Yeah.
It was designed to keep your thinking superstitious. It was designed to keep you from growing, because a growing mind is a dangerous mind.
It is.
It's a dangerous mind. And so this story is a journey into looking at some of that stuff.
Okay.
Of having someone, my main protagonist, Lenny Gray, wanting so much better for herself, but she's hemmed in by society. She's hemmed in by culture. She's hemmed in by the rules of society that press down on a people.
Okay, listen. Okay, now, we were talking earlier. Lenny Gray is also an audio presentation and audio cast.
Yeah.
So Lenny Gray. So for those of you who may be budding writers or want to write, when you have a project, you can monetize it in a number of ways. Okay. So I have a printed book of Lenny Gray, I have an audio book of Lenny Gray, and I have an audio drama of Lenny Gray. And so with the audio, and these are all just very different ways of telling the same story.
Yeah.
Let's hear an example, because you have an example for us to hear.
Play a clip of that.
So Let's hear this.
So this is a clip of Lenny Gray, a little setup here. It's Alabama, 1918.
Okay.
the sky. The ominous sound snapped Lenny Gray's awareness back to the present moment. She churned her legs faster, willing them to get her as far away as possible. She looked over her shoulder at the moon and hoped it would follow her just a little longer before it was snuffed out by the call of the advancing storm. Exhausted, she was forced to stop for a moment to catch her breath. After placing her suitcase on the ground, she swept the palm of her hand across her sweaty forehead. The blackness of the night was unsettling, but she couldn't let fear stop her. Not now.
Man,
That is awesome.
wow.
That is awesome.
I'm listening to the breath and my heart is beating fast. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's running.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. So talk about where can people download that? Talk about what, give the location, the website,
Sure.
where they can find it and everything.
Sure. Lenny Gray, you can download Lenny Gray off of Amazon.com as a book or an audiobook. It's available on Amazon, Audible.com, iBooks, the places where you go to download books and audiobooks. For the audio drama, you can find it on wherever you download a podcast. Some people do, iTunes podcast,
Sure.
Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora. And you can find Lenny Gray there, and you can find the audio drama version of that. Now, the audio drama version of it is a serial podcast, so it comes out bi-weekly.
Wow.
And so every 2 weeks, you come back for another episode of the show.
That is awesome.
If you want to do it episodically.
Okay.
So again, this is just another creative way to take that same creative idea and give it a different sort of spin. Now, with the audio drama, you get the sound designed. With the audio book, you just get the voice. And then with the printed book, you just get,
the book.
you just get the book.
So how long are the episodes of the
Sure, the
audio
episodes run anywhere between 15 and 20 minutes.
drama? Okay.
Oh, that's
Okay.
not bad.
Yeah,
That's not-
15 and 20 minutes. So if you're on a
You
commute
can
on
sit
your
down
way,
that long, or you can listen to something.
Yeah.
or if you're cleaning up the house or whatever,
Yeah.
you can sit down that long and you can do that. And also, the wonderful thing about doing Lenny Gray is I narrated it,
Okay.
Yeah.
and so I have a special connection to it. But as we were talking about narration before we came on, I went and hired a voice coach so I can learn that skill.
Sure.
And so in this book, as a writer, when you have your stuff performed for you, it's a whole different view of your work because you hear your voice in a different way.
Sure.
So it's one thing to be a writer and to write the book and you hear the voices in your head and they're never vocalized. It's another thing when you vocalize those voices,
Yeah.
it becomes something
That's
else.
powerful.
It becomes
Yeah.
transformed
Oh my
into
gosh.
something completely different. And you have to sit back and say, wow, I gave birth
Yeah.
to that. And that's a whole nother experience with the same work. It's a whole nother experience with it.
So after 25 books,
Mm-hmm.
what made you take Miss Lenny
Miss Lenny.
and make it an audio drama? What was
Was
it
this your
about
first one? Was this the first time you launched that audio drama? Wow.
This is the first one. So it was because my agent couldn't sell it.
Okay.
And so I had been down this road before.
Yeah.
And
I've never
so
done that.
the wonderful thing about Lenny Gray, the audio drama, which I just get chills every time I think about it, I launched this podcast earlier this month.
Okay.
I just launched it.
Okay.
It's
only
new.
two. It's new. Only 2 episodes. It's been downloaded close to 1,100 times in 14 different countries.
Wow.
So then that tells me, okay, I'm blooming in a different way. So now I get to bloom in a global way
Yeah.
with a work that I was waiting for someone else to say was worthy.
You know what? That's the
love
era
that.
we've come to. We've come to the era where if you have the idea and you have, because what you described earlier is what I call intentional focus. Because what you give your energy to, what you give your attention to, you give your energy to. What you give your energy to, you're giving creativity to. What you give creativity to, you're giving life to. That thing comes alive, literally. It comes into existence. So when you took your intentional focus and you said, okay, this is a new era. You're on the cutting edge of, because believe you me, you're not going to be the only one. Other people are going to say, ooh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, of course.
Because there are people who have great stories, tremendous stories that are being limited to print. Because they're limited to that because, for instance, okay, you do the Ironman thing. there was a time when people who didn't believe the human being was capable of running a mile in under 4 minutes.
Yes.
Then Roger Bannister comes along and he breaks it. I think the next year or two, like 20, 30 people broke the 4 minute mile.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and so once one person breaks the barrier, other people say, they stop saying, I can't do it.
But what I hear and what I love about your story, like Roger Bannister, you know, you can hear all these voices saying you can't, or no in your instance, but you don't take it in. You said, okay, well, I'm gonna find my own way of doing it. A lot of people hear that no.
And they stop.
And they stop. They're defeated.
Right.
Yeah,
but each time you've heard no, you're like, okay, well, I'm going to go around this way and do it. Okay, you don't want Lenny Gray. I'm going to give you Lenny Gray in a way that people aren't used to getting a book.
Right. And so even with that, even if you do tell yourself, you know, no, there's also a voice saying, yes, you can. It's what you choose to listen to. You have a choice there.
You have a choice.
You have
That's
a choice.
huge.
You have a choice. Now, you know, in this life, suffering is unavoidable. I mean, you know, everybody's going to have their bumps and stumbles and this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
It's not, okay, I do it and I go do it and I'm suddenly awesome. No. There's a journey.
That's what people, for some reason, it doesn't make sense when you say it that way, but people live their lives in a way that seems like that's what they believe.
Yeah. Yeah. No. This journey just didn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
I didn't just say, okay, I'm going to sit down and do an audio drama. You know, this is me thinking about this and saying, how do I do it? And then when I ask myself that, how, then I go figure it out. I go and I get curious. I got curious. I was like, okay, I have a broadcasting background. I said, I go in, there are people who do audiobooks. I went and found somebody who worked at Second City. And, it says, okay, I need to know what you know. You know,
and there's always someone, if you reach out and you search, there's always someone you can tap into who's willing to pour into you.
And so I was like, man, this I was being mentored. I was being mentored. And it was fun to be the student.
Yeah.
It was fun to be the student learning again, growing again,
because you're growing. Yeah.
I'm becoming more. And so I was, and this was just another part of my gift, learning how to express another part of my gift. It was learning to express. I mean, every day when I would get so excited, I would light up. It was like me. And I could not help but get excited. I could not help but, just say, oh my God, this is so much fun. This is so much fun. Even like when I do the podcasts and I talk to people, and I talk to other writers, and I'm like, what drives you? What makes you feel good?
Yeah.
I mean, even if you don't make dime one off of this.
Exactly.
You have to.
And that's how you know it's a passion.
That's passion. That's when you love it.
That's when you love it.
That's
you
when
don't
you love
care.
It. But you know what? I want to address something, a principle you said, and I want.
We're running out of time. We ain't got to the Ironman. Jesus.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well,
he's coming back.
He's coming back anyway.
You have to come back.
I mean, he's family now, so
yeah.
But I want to address something you said. That's a principle. Ask, seek, knock, and people often, when they hear that scripture, ask and it shall be given, seek and you shall find, knock and the door shall be opened unto you. That's in the book of life and scripture. But what that really means is it's not talking about prayer to God per se. It's talking about asking a question. You said, how am I going to do that? That was the question you asked. And when I found this out, I wanted clarity on my vision. So I got quiet because I get up at 3:30 every day, most days, to meditate. And so I asked this question. I said, what do I need to do to see my vision more clearly? I asked that question within myself because within me, I believe is the Spirit of God. I believe that the kingdom of God is inside of me. I believe that. And that my physical body houses that aspect of our Creator. And so I asked that question. And then when I asked the question, you said, you asked the question and then you began to look for the answer. And then as you look for the answer, when you seek something out, the scripture says that you will find what you're looking for. You found what you were looking for. Then you knocked on the door of that person's life and said, hey, help me with this. You know what you want because you asked the question, you took the time to seek it out, so you've crystallized it and you've made it clear exactly what you want to do. You've locked in on it. Now you need someone who has the expertise, who has the knowledge that you don't have, to impart that knowledge to you. That is a principle that can be applied for as a writer, as a business owner, as a student,
Any dream.
in a relationship, anything. That's a powerful principle, and that was an amazing example of that you provided. That I hope people hear that,
Right.
that they can apply it.
Yeah. And then also understand that when you do that, expect there to be some resistance. Expect there to be a learning curve. Expect and understand that whatever hiccup or roadblock you have, it's there to make you better.
Yes,
It's there to help you learn. Okay, because you when you were born, you didn't know how to walk, you had to crawl.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So understand that when you take on the journey, expect there to be resistance, but welcome it because it's there to teach you. It's there to teach you. And once you have the knowledge, I mean, man, stuff will start coming second nature to you. And then when you look back over, it says, man, when I started out, I didn't know this, but now I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah.
No one can ever take that away from you.
Right. Right.
Growth is just such a wonderful thing. I mean, you can grow in whatever way you want to.
As much as you want.
As much as you want. It's just up to you. Are you willing? That's another thing.
That's the key.
Are you willing?
That is the key.
Are you willing?
Not tomorrow,
Okay,
but now.
Talking about the willing, we're going to get to the part that Wendy B wants to get to.
Okay.
The will to keep going, the will to keep pushing. Talk about the Ironman.
So the Ironman is a triathlon. It's a sport that has I'm gonna say 4 disciplines. It's a swim, a bike, and a run, but it's also a psychological discipline.
Okay.
So I'm an Ironman triathlete, Ironman 70.3, which requires participants to swim 1.2 miles in the open water, then follow that with a 56-mile bike ride, follow that with a 13.1-mile run. It is a journey within where you go in and you do battle with yourself. Well, I won't say battle. You have deep consultation with yourself about how to keep going when there's resistance, when there's pain, when there's fear, when there's uncertainty, and it forces you to keep going. For example, for those of you who don't know what open water swim means, that means you're not in a swimming pool. That means you're in a lake, an ocean, or a quarry. That means that when you swim out, there's no wall to go hold on to catch your breath. That means you don't stop. You stop, you drown.
Going. Yeah.
Wow.
And so it forces you into a situation where you have to call upon yourself the will, the strength, the desire or whatever to keep going, for 1.2 miles in open water. So when you get
a whole bunch of other people,
with a whole bunch of other people,
hitting
and
you
then
as they're swimming.
waves, currents, resistance is happening to you. You may have the sun that's causing the water to be bejeweled where you can't see where you're going, but you're constantly going. You're constantly going, and then once you get out of that exhausting thing, most people
swimming is exhausting by itself.
Yeah, swimming is exhausting by itself, and then to get out and say, okay, I'm going to go and ride 56 miles. Now, when you get on a bicycle, wind will blow against you. Yeah, the sun will beat down on you. It will drain you. You cannot anticipate what's going to happen. My first Ironman, I was out there. I made it through the swim. I was killing it, and I was getting back to the transition to make the run. And about a quarter mile before the transition, I got a flat tire on my bike. Man. And so I've changed flat tires, no problem. But I was having such a pity party. Oh, wow. I got off my bike, threw my bike down. I was like, that was flat right here. But that was the thing to say. That was the thing to say. Do you want this goal? Do you want this bad enough, or are you going to sit here and give up? Wow. And that was life. Like, give up, quit. Yeah. That was the quit moment, because that was like, okay, I got a flat tire, so I couldn't finish, and blah blah blah. And then you have that what if. But after I had my little pity party, that voice said, fix the tire.
Fix the tire and go.
So I fixed the tire. Everybody else was zooming past me. I sat there and I fixed the tire, and I focused. My main focus was to get that tire back on. I got that tire back on, and I went to the transition, and I said, okay, good. I made it to a transition, and then it was the run, and then it was the heat.
Oh. And the exhaustion.
The heat and the exhaustion. So I'm looking at people who were ahead of me coming back and finishing, and I'm just starting out.
I was about to say, you have to fight against that mental.
You have to.
Because you're changing the tire, you're not moving.
Right.
And people are whizzing past you.
Whizzing past. But you have to believe in yourself that you can get this done. You can get this done in spite of all of this. So, I mean, when I say the other part is psychological, when I started the run, I was by myself. The only thing I hear was the sound of my feet. Just, it's a farm road, back road, no trees, just nothing but farm road and black pavement. So in order to keep myself going, I had to start singing to myself. And I said, I got sunshine.
Come on.
On a cloud.
Come on.
And when it's cold outside. And I just kept going. I just kept going to say, okay, people, one foot in front of the other, one foot in front of the other. And I went down and I made it to the turnaround point. And I said, man, okay, I made it to the turnaround because there's a cutoff. You have to be finished by 8.
I was about to say, you have to
finish within 8 hours and 30 minutes.
Okay.
And so this is my first one I'm talking about. And I'm like, man, I made the cutoff. And they said, okay, you got to get on back. You got to get on back. And so I'm getting on back and I'm getting on back. And I'm sitting there going. And then at some point, something said, walk. And I just said, whew. Wasn't done yet. I just started walking. And I just they said, well, you got to walk because your legs are hurting and your toe is hurting and, your arms are hurting, your shoulders are hurting, the sun is cooking your skin, you got a sunburn. And I was there, some said, keep going, keep going, keep going. And so then I start running again and saying, oh, dog, there's a hill. And the smallest of the hills.
Ask you about hills.
Talk about your quads hurting, but it was like, I set an intention to be an Ironman. And I wanted to cross that finish line and hear them say, you are an Ironman.
There has got to be no better feeling than to know you've crossed it.
Right. And so I get to it, and the Ironman people are funny. At the last like 400 yards, they put a hill. I mean, we're not just talking some hill. We're talking
it was a hill.
It was a hill.
You're going to work for this finish.
Yeah, you're going to run up this hill. So I run up the hill. And I get over to and I cross the finish line and I finished in like 8 hours and 26 minutes. I had 4 minutes to spare for my first one.
Oh wow!
And I was like, I did it. And it was such an emotional thing when they put the little medal on me. They gave me the hat and they gave me the Ironman. I went and I sat down and I just cried.
Yeah.
Because I knew that when I did that, I had changed. I'll never say what I cannot do. I just say not yet. I don't look at and if I look at it and say, okay, this is like an Ironman competition. This is not a quick sprint to the finish line. This is about the journey. This is about how I learned about me in this journey.
Wow.
You talk about doing introspective work, learning
doing
who you are.
The whole time.
Doing that the whole time because you're constantly having a dialogue with yourself about yourself and what you can and cannot do.
Yeah.
And those principles transfer over into life in so many different areas.
I'm sure.
So
wow.
I don't fear anything.
And you've done 6 of these now. Yes. What's your best time?
7:15.
And now the goal is to do the full Ironman, which is what?
A 2.4 mile open water swim, 112 on the bike, then 26.2.
A full marathon.
A full marathon.
Wow.
I can't wait. I'm going to be screaming like I now am. But the key is that you keep going, you keep moving. And I agree. Anybody who do the training leading up to the Ironman alone.
Yeah. You talk about getting some good health.
Yeah.
But that says that everything the story you told of your first experience with the Ironman, it's similar. It's you fighting against your analytical mind that's trying to tell you can't do something, and that your heart is saying, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, it's a battle within.
Yeah.
It's a battle
that's
within.
Life.
Yeah, it's a battle. It's the
life.
forces within. I mean, and that's the force that you are fighting.
Yeah. Well, listen,
thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for coming. We're going to have you back.
I will be more than
Listen, that's our show for this week. See you next Thursday, 6:00 p.m. This is J.H. Carpenter Barnes.
I am Wendy B. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for joining us. God bless.
Thanks for listening to JW Fusion with your hosts, James and Wendy B.